I wanted to reinforce our accessibility statement since there are a few new people in the room, reflecting our commitment to centering disability and accessibility today. We want to reclaim this space as one in which body-mind difference is the norm, not the exception. Please do what you need to feel more comfortable. You can drink, dance, stim, stomp, stretch, sit on the floor, as you'll see me doing, reclaim that space, and take any kind of breaks you need. And we want to give you a space reminder. There are a number of spaces throughout this exhibition, but in the spirit of thinking about disability and accessibility, in particular, we have a low sensory space that you can find by following the signs that has available fidgets, sensory stickers, loops, and all kinds of ways, and weighted blankets in order to allow you to have some space to be able to take in some of this material and process it as well. So with that, I would like to welcome Derrick Fox. He is the Associate Dean of Graduate Studies and Creative Endeavors and is a professor of choral conducting at Michigan State in the Music College. And his professional workshops focus on assessment in the choral classroom, building classroom community, rehearsal strategies, choral conducting techniques, and shape note singing in the African American community. He's talking today about some of the amazing work that he's done during COVID and throughout, in particular, through song.
Absolutely. So thank you all so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to share with you how the musical arts was an outlet for the group of students that I was with during that time. So prior to my time here, I was at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, where I was focused on.
Okay.
Oh,
Totally
can
have
you
to
hear me?
finish
You have to
it.
stop me?
I totally have to stop you.
Do you?
Yeah, I think you gotta put it higher.
Higher? Is that
Or
better?
not. I think that's
It's
off.
off? Oh, I didn't get trained in this part.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Hallelujah. All right.
We're gonna start over.
Yes, let's do that.
And with that, let's give it thanks.
This is going to work out much better. So, again, I'm excited to be here. I'm glad that you can all hear me much better now with the microphone. But very excited to share with you and to take you back to that time where we had to turn to the musical arts as a way to navigate trauma. And what I recognized going through this process was not necessarily not only things about my students, but things about me. And it was and still is a traumatic experience when we think about what it was to have to navigate life in that time where so many things were taken away from us. We didn't have access to a lot of things, and then we were required to exist in a way that's not natural for some of us to exist. Particularly me, I'm a people person. I like to be amongst people, around people, and with people, and that was taken away from me. And so figuring out how to navigate that and get a better sense of self, it was a traumatic experience. But in the role that I had, my role was to lead. My role was to lead, provide avenues, and think critically about how we could continue and how we could survive. But before I get into that, I have to tell you where we were. Again, I was at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and part of my goal there was to help build a community in a space that needed a little tender love and care. And one of the things that came to me was to think about how we interact with each other through music. I don't think music is a universal language. I don't believe music is a universal language. Because when you do that, you lower the threshold of what it means for us to exist in a space and be together. When we say it's a universal language, we say that the only requirement is that we all listen to music. I think that music can be a universal experience through which we learn more about how and who to be for and to each other, which requires intentionality, which requires us to do more than just sit in the same room doing the same thing. It doesn't require us to learn names. It doesn't require us to learn about how people walk through the world. But when you switch that and you take that away and you stop using the words that music is a universal language and you think about it as an experience, you think more intentionally about how you make music with each other, the purposes of making music with each other, why it's unique that the collection of voices are in a room together, because once you all leave that room, that sound will never be heard again because of the uniqueness of what you bring into that space. Then your purpose and the intentionality around why you do that work changes. So that was the groundwork. But I want to show you what we were doing when COVID happened. So we were in the midst of this reflections of us ideology that I carry through all the work that I do. And this is United in Song. So you know about the murder of George Floyd, and many folks had been trying to find a way to respond to that. And working on a metropolitan campus we have a variety of lived experiences, and when I think in a variety of diversities, I like to put an S on that to recognize that diversities is really, the word diversity is complex, and it encapsulates lots of experiences. It's beyond just race, it's beyond just gender expression. There's a lot of things that make up the diversities that are in rooms. And so we had to come to terms with that, because in Omaha we had a black person that was killed, and we were also working through our own things. And so within that community of Nebraska, there were lots of differences that had not been talked about, it had not been discussed. We were walking into rooms, singing songs and pretending like we knew each other. And we were responding to that cultural capital that we all love, which is clapping and smiling, and people standing up at the end of concerts to make us feel good. But it wasn't challenging us to think more deeply about the quality of the work that we were doing together. So I embarked upon this with this work entitled The 7 Last Words of the Unarmed, which is written by Joel Thompson. That particular piece tackles the death of 7 black men, and in some of the cases by policemen. And we actually had to talk about those and remember that there is joy in the experience of being black, because at that point we were only talking about the evil things and the bad things, and we wanted to provide some information to help students navigate these difficult conversations they were having, to also balance the sadness that was coming with black experiences with the joy that comes with black experiences. And we had to have conversations around that when we sung these pieces, which was a reaction by composer Joel Thompson, his own cathartic reaction. So I'm going to share a little bit of this with you to give you some context of what we were involved in right before COVID happened. And when I say involved in right before COVID happened, this concert was a concert that was 3 years in the making, because we had to develop on-ramps for discussion. And the Thursday before our school shut down, we did this concert. How's that volume? We can shift it if we need to. Yes, I don't know how to do that, but I chose to do this piece about 3.5 years ago. And one of the reasons why is because after our last election, I recognized that our students had difficulty talking to each other and looking at each other, and emotions were running high, but no one was giving any guidance in the form of choral music anyway, to help them realize their emotions and figure out how to handle their emotions. And so I thought, I got to do something. And choral music is a place where we create community, and this is the perfect time for me to help them realize that and help them create that. So I started by doing small pieces that were related to this topic, and then I stumbled upon Joe Thompson's piece because it was done by a friend of mine at University of Michigan, and I thought, we have to do this when the time is right. And so I built programs around these themes until the community was strong enough to be able to handle talking about these topics. Our choral community was able to talk about these topics, and then we put this piece together. And what's really important to me is the community connection part. So it's not just to lay all this information out to people and make them have feelings about it, because they will, but it's how to get them to direct those feelings in a way that will help uplift the community. And so when you see this concert, you may not get to see this unless you see the program, but in the program are places in Omaha where they can go and direct these energies and direct these feelings in a way that will uplift our Omaha community. So it's a big community service project, a community learning project, a community building project.
I wrote the piece to process my own grief and pain in response to Eric Garner's death, and more specifically, the decision of the grand jury, the Staten Island grand jury, not to indict the officer whose actions led to the death of Eric Garner. There was a sense of hopelessness in response to that decision, that his death recorded on camera didn't even warrant an indictment of negligent homicide or manslaughter even. There was just no justice. And so the piece was really an attempt to meditate on these lives and offer them the respect that I felt that they were denied. And so I used the liturgy of the 7 last words of Christ, which I feel humanize the figure of Christ in the Christian.
So as you can see, we were involved in some pretty heavy things about helping students recognize the importance of understanding what the human condition is, and our role in affecting change in the human condition, whether it be positive or negative, and how we react to that responsibility that we have to take care of the human condition. And you can see some of the outcomes that we were intending to come from that, in terms of creating community connection in a segregated city, lived experiences of real people. We developed a process for talking to each other because we were able to occupy the space and be with each other and not be in boxes. So that being able to be with each other facilitated these experiences that were very monumental. And then it all was taken away. And what happened after that was significant. We had a shift, and many performance and experience-based courses were abruptly shifted to online at many universities around the world. And students in these communities' practices flourished during COVID-19 because of the informal interactions with their peers and in-person instruction and faculty-focused learning on campus, that occasional conversation that you could have in the hallway. We were all learning in learning spaces and outside of learning spaces, but that was all taken away from us. And while we couldn't return to those Brady Bunch boxes, for those of you of a certain age, you know what that means. Those of you of not that age, you're probably like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude, keep going. But you know, that wasn't suffice anymore, and student success began to be compromised. And all the ways that I had been given to exist in a space was taken away. And so then we had to figure out how to be really, really creative in connecting with students across a variety of experiences who were going through this trauma. And so in my own life and in my own profession, we kept hearing them say, we couldn't sing. We can't do this anymore. And so I had a couple of reactions to that. If the people who are in charge of learning spaces kept hearing from those of us who were leading these learning spaces that we can't do this thing anymore, then okay, they would say, okay, if the people who do this say we can't do it, then we can't do it. And if students hear us say we can't do it, or I'm going to say learners, not just students, because this not only affected institutions like universities, but all kinds of places where singings were happening, community choirs, shape note singings that are born out of community experiences and cultural experiences. We kept saying no. And so also, this is what I realized about myself. Everybody's response to trauma is very different. So I'm a person who likes to get up and go and make stuff happen. I learned that that's my response to trauma. Get up and go, do something, make something happen. But some people don't respond like that. Some people need to pull away and be inside themselves to handle those things the way that fit in their own lives, and then they come out and express. And I'll tell you, it was important for me to learn that lesson because I had made several capital T truths based on my experiences with the way I react to trauma. So if you didn't stand up and do something during that time, then I thought you didn't care. Because it didn't reflect a response that I valued. So I learned a lot about how people take what they value, and I call those, they take lowercase t truths that are based on their own experiences, and then turn them into capital T truths that then become rules that they apply to other people that extend and sustain the cycle of socialization and oppression. And you're thinking, how in the world did we get all this in choral music? It's possible. It's possible. So I'm going to lead you through our response. I want to lead you through our response about how we had to shift. Because as one of my wonderful friends says, she says, shift happens. And you have to be ready to respond in a way that's according to you. So I'm going to share with you how the creative way that we begin to think about the choral arts helped us maintain our mental health, our physical health, and our community health through music. And I'll share it with you so that you can see this, because if you're not involved in a choir, you may have never seen a choir perform music this way. Hello. Thank you for joining us for the UNO Choral Program's presentation of Reflections of Us United in Song. If you've been a part of any of our past programs, you know of the importance that community is to the UNO choir program. It is important that through the music that we make, that we build community within the choir program by teaching students about the lived experiences of other people. I should give you context. This is during a time where we were not able to give concerts, so we had to shift online. Boom. And it's also important for us to use our music as a service to our community, whether it's teaching the community about other people in the community, or if it's bringing to the community musics that they may never have heard of for the purposes of informing and preserving the music of a variety of cultures in the world. This program is entitled Reflections of Us, United in Song, because we're currently in a pandemic. And one of the things that has been most scary for many of our students is the loss of the ability to perform and be a part of musical ensembles. One of the things that has been most important to me during this time is to figure out how we can safely and effectively continue to provide music education because of the role it plays in the social, emotional learning and development of all of the students on our campus. And through this performance and all of our rehearsals, you'll see how our students have committed to being a part of this program and delivering the best musical product possible through commitment of learning the notes, and also bringing to this experience their own personal musicianship. One of the things that I tell our students every day in rehearsal, I would like you to be the best version of
so you
yourself.
can actually see some performance.
In song.
This is
It was
reaction.
undoubtedly special. It was some of the most fondest memories I probably will cherish for this semester with all of the craze that's been happening. I remember the first rehearsal we had in this space. It brought me all of the same feelings that I had that just kind of shut down ever since March happened. So choir was something I definitely took for granted before the pandemic, but now that we're back, it's definitely made me realize how special and how essential it is for my life, and how it plays a huge role and a huge impact in my life, and how much I think it makes me a better person, and it makes me a better person for the community around me.
Now, for the sake of time, I'm going to continue on. So this was our attempt to continue doing choir like we had always done it. Singing, being in an ensemble, emoting, you saw us moving. The thing that made it most difficult is we had on masks and face shields. So we've taken away one of the things that differentiates singing from just playing an instrument. Most of the time when you play an instrument, it's in your face, unless it's piano. And the only time the piano's in your face is if you're falling asleep while you're practicing. So one of the things that makes singing in a vocal ensemble unique is because of that facial expression. And we often talk about diction and the way you say the words and the way you emote, and because we can see your full body engaging, but that was taken away from us. So it didn't feel the same. And I thought we have to do something different, because I kept trying to force us into this space of doing it like we'd always done it, but the conditions of the world said no. We couldn't have it that way. And so I want you to hear just a few people in their own words talk about what it was like to be a part of a choir during that time, and then I'm going to get into some more of the specifics about how we had to be creative beyond just doing the things and the way that we had done them in order to sustain our community and sustain some of these students who actually were not thriving in some of their other classes at all. And so we were only together for about 15 minutes a day. And I had to figure out how to make these connections while also holding the musical standards that we wanted to have as a community. But I want you to hear some of these things in their own words.
Describing what it's like to be a part of this choir at the time that we're living is indescribable. There are just so many dimensions that really evoke emotion for me. I watch the students and I see their resilience and I see their strength, and I don't know that I've ever been a part of something so monumental that in the end has created a community of students and Dr. Fox where we wear masks, we can't see our faces, we're committed to something that, you know, in the very beginning was an unknown, and to be a part of watching music that touches every one of us every day is truly one of the most important things that I think I have been a part of here at UNO and in life. And I will say, to have Dr. Fox and the students who are so committed to making music in the community is something that we will live with for the rest of our lives, and it will be a reflection of the good of humanity and the good of the soul that we all are a part of trying to make things the best that we can at this time.
Undoubtedly special.
This is raw footage.
It was some of the most fondest memories I probably will cherish for this semester with all of the craze that's been happening. I remember the first rehearsal we had in this space. It brought me all of the same feelings I had that just kind of shut down ever since March happened. So choir was something I definitely took for granted before the pandemic, but now that we're back, it's definitely made me realize how special and how essential it is for my life, and how it plays a huge role and a huge impact in my life, and how much I think it makes me a better person, and it makes me a better person for the community around me.
Thanks, John. That's it.
Thanks.
Okay. So, Emily, how has it been to be able to sing and be a part of a choir this semester?
For me, it's been really great, because for a lot of people especially people who have been doing choir for a really long time, we get a lot of people asking us, oh my gosh, you probably feel like your life's over and you feel like you can't. It feels really discouraging to have people constantly there's a lot of things going on where people say that, oh, well, there's no way you're going to be able to sing this semester.
And so you get that theme. They're hearing this outside of this art that has become a part of their identity. Their singing is a part of their identity. It's really tough when you think about singers, because this is our instrument. You can't take it out and put it in a box. So it feels personal when someone says something about your voice. It feels very personal when someone says you can't use your voice in a way that has become a part of your identity. So as we continued, and I continue to think about how to be creative in terms of what's the next step. We can come together and sing for 15 minutes, but like I told you, being in these choral ensembles is about how are we to and for each other. So is there a way that we could harness the power of creativity, the power of connection, to direct it in a way to help students move it outward? So we're paying forward this gift we had before COVID-19 and before the pandemic shut everything down. We had this gift, and we've learned some things from this gift. We have been given a gift. How can we pay that forward to our community and capitalize on the connections that are created based on how we have been in that space? So I decided to take that and do some creative community projects, so that students could feel like they were connected and that the work still mattered, and we were doing some greater good for a community that was also hurting, maybe in different ways than we were, hurting in different areas of their lives, but we could play a role in healing ourselves by helping somebody else heal through the gift that we've been given through music. The thing that's ironic is some of these things are don't necessarily involve in singing. And so I want to share this with you. What we did was, in Omaha, we have a medical center that received some of the very first COVID patients at our medical center there. And so we had a community of medical professionals that were risking, at that time, risking their lives to go into these spaces to help people from around the world, actually, that were being brought to Omaha. And so I thought, this is a wonderful time for us to harness that community and that caring that we had created for each other and reflect that to other folks. So we created appreciation videos, because how often do we stop in the busyness of life to look at someone and say, I appreciate you, in a genuine way. Especially as students, when our lives get so busy, we're not just as students, as people, because sometimes, not sometimes, now busyness has become a badge of honor. You're so busy, that means you're important. You are so busy, that means everybody wants you and you are just at the top of your game. And so, and sometimes subconsciously we make ourselves busy so that we can feel important, which then taps into our cultural capital of watching somebody say to you, you're so busy, you And so what I did was, we created videos for teachers, we created videos for medical professionals, and then we created videos for students, teachers, for students to give to their teachers who have been along the way a part of their journey. And I'm going to share with you one of these creative outputs that's not a musical output, but it is based in what we've learned being together in choir, and how do we take back control of being forced to be online to create this, what I think is a piece of art, to help encourage our community.
Teachers, we just wanted to say thank you for all the hard work that you put in behind the scenes. You put in so much effort and it does not go unnoticed. Thank you for continuing to push through even when you are tired and exhausted. You are so important.
Thank you for being the light to so many students struggling in this hard time. We know it's hard for you, but just keep pushing.
Thank you for all the work that you put in behind the scenes. Thank you for all of the late nights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the time you've given to be able to still enhance our learning, even though this time is really difficult. Continuing to inspire the world and encouraging us to still chase our dreams. Thank you for being there and continuously helping us to change our lives. For continuously showing up, even when it's hard or isn't what you signed up for, because you will never stop doing all you can for your students. Thank you for helping your students continue to learn, even as you're still learning through this hard time.
Now, in these times, this may seem very hokey. But during that time, when people needed to hear they were doing a great job, because they were doing all that they could just to survive, and convince themselves to get up, get online, and teach. And I had a kindergartner at this time, and I recognized that some of the best teaching I'd ever seen was by a kindergarten teacher, because if you can get a bunch of 5, 6, 7-year-olds to be focused in that time behind the screen, you have been gifted. You have earned your crown, or whatever, for whatever. And so I learned a lot. So in that time, it was very impactful. It was so impactful that we got a lot of letters, and I got a lot of emails from those medical professionals who were risking their lives every day to figure out how I could continue to live my life, to be here standing in front of you today, so that we can have a better understanding of COVID-19. So that's how impactful that project was, and it fed our students to know that they were still able to be in this community of choral music making and still be impactful in the ways that we hope our traditional concerts are. And this was even more impactful because you could see the individual effort that students put into this apparatus that we created in a way that sometimes we forget about when we stick folks in choirs, because we think all the voices just blend together and no one can see me. That's really not the case, but that's sometimes what audiences think. But it's the individuality that each person brings into the choral music experiences that moves you and that moves us to continue to come back into these experiences. So one of the other things that we did, I have to play a little bit of this to be sure I have this right. One of the other things that we did was we created videos for retirement homes, because at that time, there were retirement homes that were shut down so that people couldn't connect with their families. And there were folks who were waving to each other through windows. And we know that as we mature in age, the connection to people and the connection to your families or your chosen family are really important to you being able to sustain life. And here we now have been cut off from that. one of the things, like I told you, music is not a universal language, but it's a universal opportunity for us to learn who and how to be for and to each other. I should get that on a bumper sticker, but it'd be hard to read. It's a lot of words. But you get it. So I thought, so many folks are connected through music within their families. And so what I wanted to do was figure out how to utilize music to help folks in retirement or assisted living homes, because we do know the effect that music has on the development of the brain, to stay active with the brain through music. So I sent out a list of several community assisted living homes in the area and asked them to provide for me a list of songs that their residents like. And then our students were going to record it, because we didn't have to all be in a choir to do that. They could do it at home. They could turn that screen off and do it at home and submit it. And then I created six videos that were probably an hour long with 15 songs in each one of them. And we created these links, and the students performed individually, and they all got to choose their own songs, and they were across a wide variety of styles. Somebody in an assisted living home in Omaha likes Prince. I say, go for it. And we put all of those together, and we sent links to the retirement homes, and we sent the same links to the families. So if they wanted to get together on Zoom or Skype, maybe, and they could watch that concert together and talk to each other about that experience. What I also learned is the students had a lot of musical experiences outside of what we were doing in the learning space. I had a student that could sing just like Johnny Cash. Never knew that unless I opened up this experience for him to share that aspect of his life. I also learned that I had a student who went home and incorporated their entire family, because they all moved into the same house during that time, during COVID, so they could be together. And so they all sat on the basement on their sectional playing ukulele together and singing songs together. And they recorded that. And what an impact that is, to have that family come together in that way, because probably that family was caught up in the busyness of life. And now they're in the same room together all the time, or the same house together all the time. I have a 10-year and a 7-year-old, and we're in the house together all the time. Ooh, Lord. They've heard me say this, but they need jobs, so if you're hiring, let me know. But it gave them some intention in a way that they might not have thought about, because it's easy for us in our living spaces to go to our own rooms or go to our own spaces. But this brought them together to create something together to help enrich the lives of people outside of their living space. Also, with our medical professionals, they had a contemporary a cappella group that was made up of medical students, and at that time I was the advisor for that. And so even they got in on it. So in the medical professionals, the students were also at the university that were housing some of the COVID patients that they were bringing in from around the world, and they were learning about that, and that's pretty heavy stuff. But they were able to engage in creating music as well, and they shared that experience for me to put together for this package that we sent out to the choirs, to the retirement homes. So this is just a snippet. I mean, how creative is this? For her to put this together, she's singing, playing. She had to play the oboe twice, and then put them together. Anybody who plays the oboe twice gets credit in my book.
You heartbreaker, wherever you're going.
Nothing wrong with a good 80s power ballad.
Have I told you there's no one else above you? Ba, 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 ba.
Hi there, my name is Abby. I'm a senior here at UNL.
And then I had them do this at the end. Now, that last video you saw of all the people singing in the boxes, you can't do that simultaneously on Zoom. They have to record those individually and then go back and do the work of layering that in. So the effort that goes into creating that shows their commitment to the project and their commitment to the outcome of the project. I'm almost running low on time, so I'm going to continue here. One of the other outcomes of our time together, and this was after we moved to a place in COVID where we could come back together, was continuing to be committed to the work that we started. Because I wanted us to recognize that the way we came together in COVID did not have to be just for that time. We learned a lot about, again, how and who to be for and to each other, and the non-musical ways that could grow out of the community we built around music. And so I did a literacy project because my daughter came home one day and she said to me, "Dad, we're learning about people in school, and we're learning about people in history that look like us, and we were named slaves." And I thought, we got some work to do. And so again, my response kicked in and I thought, so I could go up to the school and I could go in and I could just have a crazy fit because that's gonna make them change. But then I thought, how about this? They need more depictions of lived experiences outside of their own. We're still trying to figure out how to exist in this space because we were at this point, we were out of face shields and masks, but we were still separated. And so what I did was I got a grant and I got a variety of books that had a variety of lived experiences in them. And then the students in the choirs read the books and we made recordings. And then we sent those recordings out to the schools and we gave every school that got books, the recordings, a set of books. And you've never seen a senior soprano be so excited about reading one of these books to an elementary kid than I did at that time because we couldn't be in the space with them. And so these are some of the books that we selected, but I share that with you because I know that was a traumatic time, and I'm not living in a place of toxic positivity where I think that everything bad that happens to you has to have a good outcome. That's not it at all. But in this particular case, we were handed a situation that was not ideal, and we were handed a situation that challenged us to think differently about how we move through the world. And we use this as an opportunity to learn about perseverance. We use this as an opportunity to learn that sometimes the boundaries we put upon ourselves can be expanded if we step outside of our comfort zone and we think creatively about our art and we think creatively about the product that can come from our art. And we think creatively about how we can connect with each other to create something that, yes, is bigger than us, but it's also a reflection of us as well. I know that was so hokey for me to tie that into that, but that is my time with you. And as you begin to leave, I want you to see some academic and some educational things that I tie this to. If you know anything about applied theater, there are some concepts in applied theater that tie directly to the concepts that were underpinning this idea of creativity and how we change and how we connect with community. And there's a little bit of that if you want to take a look as you walk by. Thank you. 339. 339. Thank you so much, everybody. Yeah, I don't know if you have any questions or anything. I know we have to move on, but I can be outside.
No, questions.
Okay.
Questions. Time for questions. Let's go. Oh, wow.
Thank you very much for this talk. Can I ask two quick questions?
Sure.
One as a musician, one as an academic.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one as a musician, to sort of make sure that I'm on the same page with you. Thinking with like Wynton Marsalis and his thing, how the two groove is something that we share.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying that music is a shared experience. And from that shared experience, we can start building a shared language?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because for us to say music is a universal language, it means that we just all get the same thing. So here's my great example of that. I don't know if you remember a few years back at the Super Bowl, there was a halftime that included lots of black R&B singers, there were some rappers. If you were online at all, the response to that performance from some aspects of our community did not reflect music as a universal language that we all just get. Because there were some people who didn't understand why Snoop Dogg was there. And there were some people who had a real big issue with Mary J. Blige being there. But if we all were on the same page that music is a universal language, then we all appreciate the differences in language, and we don't always appreciate the differences in the musical case and the way that sometimes that statement is used.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the question as an academic, sort of, like the links between choral music and Christianity were in this talk as well. And then, like, you know, I've heard that like Sunday morning is the most segregated time of the week in the States. And placing that side by side with unity in music. So I guess I'm wondering how those dynamics played out in this project.
Yeah, so maybe that aspect came out in the way that I talk about it, but for me, this was separate from a religious experience, or some people could have taken that away from it if they needed it. So when I present things, it's important for me to make it open so that if someone wants to connect with that through some kind of a faith-based experience, they can. But if it's strictly just a social experience, that's it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for that question.
Thank you. I was just wondering, it sounds like y'all did like so many cool projects and everything, and I'm thinking particularly as someone that used to be in choir too about how like being in, taking up the space rather than just kind of being on a stage instead of inhabiting the whole space. I'm just wondering, like moving forward, after having experienced COVID and what this project has brought, what are you going to like kind of keep in your teaching and bring with you moving forward?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. And just for the sake of time, here's the biggest thing that I've taken away from this, and I talked about this earlier, is recognizing that my response to trauma is different than other people's response to trauma. So making space so that people have to, teaching in a way and leading in a way that, and providing as many on-ramps as possible for people to engage in an experience as I'm trying to meet these larger musical goals, because people want to have great concerts. People want to have excellent concerts. People want to feel successful. But knowing that how we get there for folks is going to look different and going to be different. So that requires me to be more nimble in some ways that, that I didn't have to be, because people may not have been as verbal about their needs until after COVID. It has also helped me put my needs at the forefront of that picture too, because we often hear, especially as K through 12 educators, you know, you got to sacrifice for the job. You got to stay up until 8 or 9 o'clock, and you got to be at school all the time. I deserve to have a high quality of life as well, and I don't have to be a martyr for my profession in order to be successful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for that question. All right.
There's another hand, I swear. One last.
As you started this, I recall something during COVID at church where someone brought in a series done by a choir, but one at a time, kind of building on each other and using the strength of how these things can be integrated in interesting ways. And one of the things that you displayed seemed to capture a little of that. That seems to be a way to both capture the value of Zoom-like behavior and the fact of having to be isolated at the same time. So
I'm so glad you brought that up. It's called virtual choir is what they call it. Ironically, I showed you an example here, but one of the other catalysts for me having to figure out how to be creative in a different way, because at that time there were people who were coming out with software to be able to help you create these virtual choirs. My choir was not interested in virtual choir. They wanted nothing to do. We did one, and I made it voluntary, and I had about 12 out of 60 people in that one choir do it. And so I freaked out a little bit, because I thought, we're going to do a lot of virtual choirs. And then I thought, we're only going to do one virtual choir. And so some of the things you saw today was an outpour of me responding to the student need, because they didn't want to sit in a room by themselves and record music. That's not why you joined a choir.
yeah, okay.
So thank you for bringing that up. I forgot to mention that. All right, thank you all very much. I appreciate you letting me share the space with you.
Thank you so much.